Hi. Can television and cinema influence suicides? Let's find out today. I'm delighted to welcome you to another episode of Mindscape Matters, a channel to discuss mental health and more. I'm Dr. Mohan Raj. I'm a consultant psychiatrist, and I'll be with you as we discuss various facets of mental health. In 1981, a German television station telecast a 6-week serial called The Death of a Student. It was about the railway suicide of a fictional student named Klaus Wagner. Each episode began with Wagner's death from different points of view. After the series started, the incidence of death in Germany went up. Imitation effects were most clearly observable in the groups whose age and sex were closest to that of the lead character, Klaus Wagner. Over extended periods, that is up to 70 days after the first episode, the number of railway suicide increased most sharply among 15 to 19-year-olds. The incidents were up to 175% increase. Also, the imitation effects remained detectable for longer periods in the groups closest in age to the model. The series was re-telecast in 1982. Again, the incidence of suicides in Germany went up. This increase in suicide rate following this TV serial was documented in a research paper by Schmidt and Hafner. They had titled their paper The Werther Effect After Television Films, New Evidence for an Old Hypothesis. Now, what is Werther effect and what was the hypothesis? Werther was a fictional character in Johann Wolfgang Goethe's novel The Sorrows of Young Werther, published in 1774. The novel is written in the form of letters written by young Werther to a friend. Werther writes about the unrequited love he has for Charlotte. Charlotte is already engaged to somebody else. Werther goes through a lot of problems in the novel, and in the end of the novel, he shoots himself with a pistol. The novel made Goethe a literary celebrity. None other than Napoleon Bonaparte said that the novel is one of the great contributions to European literature. But on the ground, there were many readers who started dressing like Werther in yellow pants and blue jackets. They started killing themselves in the same manner Werther does in the novel. In many places, they were dressed like Werther at the time of death, or the novel was found near the body. Many countries banned the book because of this reason. The act of imitating a media depiction of suicide is called copycat suicides. And the hypothesis is, if there is graphic depiction of suicide in media, there are bound to be some people who will imitate the action. The suicides that followed the publication of Werther novel were the first documented copycat suicides. Copycat suicides are also known as suicide contagion, meaning that suicide can be infectious. The act of copycat suicide was named as Werther effect by David Phillips in 1974. David Phillips was reporting about a highly publicized suicide in New York Times, which led to an increased number of suicides among its readers. Subsequently, many studies looked at the correlation between a media depiction of suicide and the actual incidence of suicide. And most studies found, yes, there was a correlation. If the media depiction was detailed and explicit, or if the act of suicide was romanticized or glorified, the incidence of suicide went up. Some of the studies had a methodological advantage. Some television channels would show a serial in some of the states and not in others. Researchers could study the population in those states which were exposed to the serial versus those states which did not have access to the serial, and they found that graphic portrayals of suicide in fact led to an increased incidence of actual suicides. The question that will naturally arise is there a causal link? Okay, we have established a correlation. There is depiction of suicide and there is actual incidence of suicide going up. But are the serials and cinema the cause for suicide? Because there were thousands of people who watched the serial and the movie, and only some of them went and killed themselves. So can we say that's the cause? No, we cannot, because a single cause cannot be teased out, because there are multiple factors for suicide, as we have seen in the last few episodes. But the consensus among the researchers is, if a person is already vulnerable, the person could be depressed or the person could be going through a lot of life stressors, a depiction of a glorified suicide can be a triggering factor. Or if the person has multiple stressors, emotional trauma, and there is a depiction of similar emotional trauma and suicide as the only solution to those, that depiction can also act as a trigger for suicide. Recently in 2017, Netflix released a series called 13 Reasons Why. It was based on a novel by similar name by J. Asher. The story is about Hannah Baker, a student who killed herself. She leaves behind a box of cassettes where she explains the reasons why she chose to end her life. The series was very popular and Netflix went ahead and produced 3 more seasons. The series also had another consequence. The number of suicides in the US went up after the first season. According to one study, the incidence of teenage suicide increased by 28.9%. After criticism and backlash, Netflix started introducing a trigger warning in the beginning of the episode. The trigger warning will typically say that this program has depiction of suicide, bullying, sexual assault, and it advised user discretion. The series also had a positive effect. The series 13 Reasons Why triggered a discussion among students, parents, and teachers about teenage issues like depression, suicide, drug abuse, bullying, and sexual assault. Netflix followed it up by releasing a documentary called Beyond the Reasons, featuring cast and crew of the series and some mental health professionals. They discussed about their experience while working on the series and also about what a teenager could do if faced with similar teenage issues. In India, suicide is a common occurrence in films and TV serials. Let me tell you the story of one filmmaker, director K. Balachander. He directed a movie called Maro Charitra in Telugu, which was released in 1978, and it was a huge hit. He followed it up by making the same movie in Hindi named Ek Tujhe Ke Liye, which was released in 1981. The movie became what we today call as a pan-India hit or a pan-India movie. It was a hit in all the regions in India. It launched Kamal Haasan, who was a well-known actor in Tamil, Malayalam, Telugu and Kannada industries, into Hindi cinema. The leading lady, Radhi Agnihotri, was also launched into Hindi cinema. The producer L.V. Prasad donated part of the profit he got out of the movie's success to establish a world-class eye hospital and research center in Hyderabad that bears his name. Despite the huge success, the director K. Balachander had reasons to be unhappy. This is because the number of suicides, especially among young lovers, went up. This is in relation to the lead pair ending their life by suicide in the climax of the movie in a highly glorified depiction of suicide. Balachander felt bad and wanted to do something to redeem himself. He directed a movie called Punnagai Mannan in 1986. The movie starts with a suicidal attempt by a young couple and one of them dies. The storyline is to demonstrate that you can lead a good life after a suicidal attempt. The movie featured Kamal Haasan, Revati and Srividya in the lead roles, and the movie was a big success. But Balachander was still unsatisfied with the ending of the movie. He directed another movie called Vaname Ellai in 1992. The movie starts with 5 protagonists deciding to end their life by suicide. They go to a suicide point where they meet each other, they talk to each other and make a pact to live happily for 100 days before dying. In the end of the movie, they decide to live longer and to avoid suicide. When Dr. Lakshmi Vijayakumar of Sneha, a non-governmental organization working on suicide prevention, invited director Balachander for one of their functions as a chief guest, he said he would not be able to attend that year as he was guilty about the number of suicides after Ek Tujhe Ke Liye. He assured her that he will do something to redeem his guilt and then honor the invitation. Director Balachander came as a guest to Sneha's function after Vaname Ellai was released. In earlier Tamil serials, there were graphic depictions of suicide, especially suicide by immolation. Sneha, the same NGO organization, conducted a workshop for producers and directors of Tamil serials and talked about the impact of media on suicide. Following this, producer AVM Saravanan was the first one to pledge that AVM banner will not depict immolation henceforth. Many other producers and directors followed suit. Can television and cinema have the opposite effect of Werther? That is, can they help in preventing suicides? It looks like it can. The effect is called Papageno effect. The name is after a character Papageno in Mozart's play The Magic Flute, which debuted in the 18th century. In the play, the character Papageno loses his love and decides to end his life by suicide. He was prevented by 3 boys who talk to him and tell him about alternate ways of coping with his problems. For obvious reasons, population studies to look at Papageno effect will be difficult because we have statistics on suicide. How are we going to have population statistics of who decided not to go for suicide? But we keep coming across anecdotal reports of somebody telling, I had a particular problem, I had decided to end my life, but I saw this movie or this TV program or I read this book and decided not to end my life. My appeal to creators and story writers is, the media is very powerful. Its influence on the viewers is immense. If a storyline demands a suicide to be shown, please show it. But show it in a responsible fashion with as minimal shots as possible or in a symbolic way. Please do not romanticize or glorify the acts of suicide. Let us have more Papagenos than Werthers. Thank you for watching this far. If you like this video, please tell 4 of your friends. Tell them there is a Tamil version also. Stay tuned because Mindscape matters. Bye.